Okay, now we're recording. So once you think you have your solution set up, start it without the debugger through the debug and start without debugging menu. This will get your site launched in the browser. And a couple weeks ago we password protected it. I'm not sure I remember what credentials I used. Right, that's probably it. I think I used Ralph. There we go. So if you can't remember how to log into your site, just click on your register link and create a new registration for yourself. So the page we're going to work on for implementing AJAX is this one, is our student page. So once I log in, it shows my first and last name, which are stored in a session variable when I log in.
So you want, so we're working on the student or students?
Student, singular. Now, some of you may have, from Lab 3, you may have a list of courses showing up underneath the student. If you don't have that, that's okay, because I will give you the code for that so we can catch up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some bit of code on Blackboard. Does anybody have the list of a grid showing the list of courses? You have it? Okay. Not many people? All right, well, we can do that part quickly.
That was lab 3.
That was Lab 3.
I did do lab 3.
Okay, well, if you didn't do Lab 3, you're in luck. I'm just going to throw the code for it up on Blackboard right now, which we will want to add. So just give me a second to update this.
And I guess in this piece of code is going to go on the student page.
Yep, so open up your student page. First I'll put on the code for populating the grid view. Rather than write it, I'm just going to give it to you. If you need it, I'm going to just paste the HTML into Blackboard. Give me 1 second, we'll put it there. So there's your HTML that we need.
It's on there now?
Nope, hang on just a second.
Sorry, hyper.
And I'll just drag it to the top so it's the first item you see there. Okay, it's there now. So if you go into course documents in lesson 13, there's both some HTML that sets out a title and a grid view. Whoops, actually, hang on. I just have to change one thing. Don't take it yet.
Well, all right.
Let's get rid of that. Okay, now we can take it. So I don't have it in mind, so I'll walk you through what we're going to do with this code. So the first thing is take the HTML part. So we've got a H2 heading, and then we have a grid view. So we're just going to, you can just grab that code, everything in blue, and we'll just copy that down at the bottom of our student page. So underneath our save button, we're going to put in a subheading and we're going to put in a grid view. So not only can we show our student form at the top, but down below we can show a list of what courses that student is enrolled in.
So below that button, but inside the div. Or wait, outside the div.
Yep, so here's our div with our save button. So after this, but before our content block ends. So just paste it in here. And we can probably outdent that. That doesn't have to be shifted over that way. So not only do we have our form at the top, but we have a grid that will show whatever courses that student is enrolled in, and it will show the name of the department, the title of the course, what grade the student has if there is one, and there'll be a delete button. Once you've got this in your ASPX file, there's also some C# code that we need in order to populate this list. So that code is just down below it on Blackboard. There's a function that says, starts here.
Protect, void, get enrollment.
Get enrollments. So we'll need to add that, and then we'll need to call that function after we get the student and put in their first name, last name, and enrollment date. So just grab that C# function, and if you go to the code window, you can just click View Code. So we already have a get student method that populates our form if we have a student ID. Doesn't really matter where we put this function. I'll put it below my get student. And we'll have to change this because our connection name we call default connection. So if you paste it in, it's not going to like this COMP2007 entities. That's from my Wednesday class. So we'll just replace that with the word default connection, because that's what our connection string is called in our web.config. So just change that line.
So using default connection?
Yep. So this looks up the student ID, gets the student ID, and it selects all the courses that student is enrolled in, and it binds that query result to our new grid that we just put on the form. Now this function won't do anything yet because it's not being called from anywhere. So in our get student method, after we look up the student and fill our 3 text boxes,
where are we? Sorry.
we're in the get student method,
Okay.
and down near the bottom, I'm just going to put it inside of my try. So right in here, fill the enrollments grid. So we just will call get enrollments. So after we load the student, if that works and no error has been caught, then we'll call get enrollments, which will fill our grid.
All right. So sorry, I'm just gonna follow along.
I also realize I need to put the delete function for you on Blackboard. So I'll just throw that up on there as well. Rather than write it, I'd rather focus on AJAX, so I'll give you the code. So you've got one curly brace before the catch.
Yeah.
So if we try to run this now, we're going to get an error. The reason we're going to get an error is our grid view has a row deleting method, which we don't have in our C# code.
Can you just go back there for 1 second? Sorry. Okay, I'm stressed. Okay, I'm good.
So if I compile and reload, try and refresh this page, we're going to get an error saying there's no row deleting method in our C#, even though our grid view is looking for a row deleting. So I've put the row deleting function, if you just refresh the page on Blackboard, down below the get enrollments, here's your row deleting method. So no different than what we did before. And again, we'll just have to change that word to say default connection. So just copy and paste from row deleting down to the bottom of that item. And just put that anywhere in the C# file.
Where's so we're copying the
You're copying what's highlighted in blue.
pick courses. Or
From the row deleting function to the end of that item.
just trying to find. Oh, refresh. You said refresh Blackboard. Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to put it right below my get enrollments. And again, Visual Studio will say, hey, I don't like this COMP2007 entities. I don't know what it is. So we just have to change that to default connection. Again. So now you should be able to compile, reload your page. And if we can find a student that's enrolled in a course, we should see a list of courses underneath the Save button. If nothing shows up in that grid, that's fine, because we're going to look at how we can add a student to a course, and we're going to use AJAX when we do it. And in the original set of data that I gave you, there should be some students that are registered in courses. So if I go to students, so if you click on the third one, Arturo Anand, you should see, I've got a bunch here, but you should see, I think at least the first 2 records should show up in your data set. Those were in the original data set I gave you back like in week 5 or week 6. So I should also, I have some duplicates in my database. The data doesn't really matter. And we can try out the delete should work. So you notice the delete function that we copied and pasted, it does run. It does allow me to delete. Now this might actually be a good candidate for AJAX. Why? No, what happens when I click delete? That isn't great. So the delete works. Not only does it refresh, why is this not a great experience for the user? Right, because it takes me back to the top of the page. If this was a really long page, I'd have to go all the way back down to make sure my record got deleted. There's no need for us to run this query again and repopulate that form. That's a waste of time and a waste of bandwidth. We should just be able to update this section only. So before we do that, the other thing we want to do is we want to add a section down below so that we can put a user into a new course. And when we do, we're going to use AJAX for that. And then we can implement AJAX on our delete as well. So in the interest of time, You get to do more copying and pasting.
But
So what I've given you down below, there's some more HTML. This will be the HTML that will allow the user to pick a department and then pick a course and then click Add. And then I've given you the C# that will actually save the student into the selected course.
This is different than the lab.
Sorry?
This is different than lab 3 code?
You probably didn't put this in lab. In lab 3, you didn't have to do this, so no. Lab 3, you just had to show the courses the student was already in. You didn't have to add functionality to put them in a new course. So where the HTML starts with table class equals, just grab that HTML right down to the end table. Okay, so there's a section, a block of HTML and a block of C#. So just grab the rest of the HTML. We'll look at what it does in a minute. And underneath my grid view, I'm just going to paste that HTML in.
on student.
Yep, on your student page. So here's what the page will sort of look like now. So we've got our form, we've got our grid, and then we have two drop-downs. So we're going to fill this drop-down with the name of the departments. We're going to fill this drop-down with the name of the courses, and then when the user clicks the Add button, we want to be able to save that student into that course. So we'll get this running as it is, and then we'll implement AJAX with it. Why is this a good candidate for an AJAX implementation? How would you implement AJAX in that new section? Kaylee?
So it's just updating the one course, like it's not refreshing the whole page?
Explain a bit more. What would update the course? I think you're on the right track. I mean, there's a relationship between these two controls, isn't there? What's the relationship between this control and that one?
Like if you choose the department, then the course.
You got it. Right. We don't have that many courses in our database, but theoretically, imagine this is Georgian. How many courses are there? You're a Georgian, right? How easy would it be to look through that list if we just showed all the courses in there? It'd be much easier first if we made the user pick a department, and then we could refilter the list of courses so that they only saw the courses in the selected department. So we're going to filter this selection based on what the user chooses here. There's no need to reload the whole page, so this is a good candidate to use AJAX. We have some kind of cascading drop-down, right? This might be country, Canada, US, and these might be states or provinces. Or pick a province, pick cities in that province. So I'll save those changes to my ASPX, but I've also given you some code to fill the drop-downs. So there's a get departments function that queries the departments table. It fills the department drop-down, and it also adds a default item that says select into each drop-down. Notice we're not filling the course drop-down, because we're going to do that once the user picks a department, then we'll choose the courses. So just grab that function. This is just your basic fill a drop-down function that we've done before. And we'll put that into our C#. Doesn't really matter where, I'll put it down near the bottom.
We're doing the code for that part.
Yes. And again, we'll just change our connection to default. Now this function won't run unless we call it from somewhere, where and when does it make sense to invoke this function? When should the list of departments get filled? Yeah, when the page, as soon as the page loads, we should be also filling that drop-down list, so the user, right?
Where'd you plot that in?
Doesn't really matter.
Put it wherever you want.
Put it wherever you want. The code is not sequential in a C# file. The code executes when we call one of the functions. Actually, we're getting one error, which is, I'm going to take this out because we'll regenerate this. In the HTML, in our department drop-down list, there's an onSelected index changed event. I'm highlighting this code in blue. Let's remove this for now. We're going to recreate this code in a minute. The code in blue, you can just delete for now. We'll regenerate that event after. That's what happens when the user picks an item in the first drop-down. First, we just want the drop-down to populate. Then we'll come back, we'll put this in after. So I'll just remove that for right now. We'll come back to that. So just take out the selected index changed event from our first drop-down. So now, as Vadim suggested, we need to call our getDepartments function when our page loads. Should we do it every time the page loads? Should we fill the drop-down, or only under certain circumstances?
Only if the course is added? First student is added to the course.
Well, could be. Let's look right now what conditions we have when the page loads. When should we be filling that list of courses?
Like putting it right under get students? Because if it's a postback, the information is taken, so it'll persist.
Right, so we don't need to do it if the form's posted back. The drop-down's already populated because it's sticky. So we don't want to fill it again, or we will wipe out whatever the user chose. We also don't need to fill the drop-down if we don't have a student ID. Just go back here for a minute. If I'm going to create a new student, why don't we need to fill our department drop-down yet? Right, if we're going to add a student, there's no point filling the drop-down to let us put the student in a course. We don't even have a student yet. First, we need a student record with an ID to be saved before we worry about putting them in any courses. So what Brandon suggested makes sense. So in this case, we'll fill the department drop-down. By calling getDepartments. So we only do this if the page is being loaded for the first time and we're looking up an existing student. Oh, one more thing it doesn't like. Again, the code I gave you has an add click, which we haven't written yet. So I'll just go down to my add button at the bottom. I'm going to take that out for now. We'll regenerate that in a minute. So where I've highlighted it in blue,
The on-click, you want that on?
yep, we'll put it back, but it's looking for a function that doesn't exist right now. So for now, we'll just remove that. So the button will show, but it doesn't do anything yet. So we just want our page to load and we want our drop down to fill. That's kind of the goal for now. So if I add a student, my drop-down's blank, that's okay. We can't put a student that doesn't exist into a course. We've got to save them first. So eventually what we should probably do is just hide that whole section, right? If we're adding a new student, if we have no ID, there's no need to show any of this stuff. We can get to that later. But if we're looking up an existing student, our grid shows, and now our department drop-down is being populated. If we click on our course drop-down, we get nothing. So we want to add the code that you suggested. Once the user picks a department, we want it to populate the course list. If they choose a different department, it will repopulate. So first we'll do this without AJAX, and then once we have this working, then we'll implement AJAX to make it smoother. So now we'll go back to our department. We'll regenerate that selected index changed event. So we want something to happen as soon as they pick a department. So in my tag, if I type on selected index changed and equals, I'll get the option to create a new event. So this will generate a selected index changed event in our C#. So I'm going to pick that option.
So we take that in where we erase true?
Nope, don't erase true. It's after true.
Yes, I mean the part that.
Right here in blue
Yeah.
is new.
So on.
So this will allow us to write code when this event fires. Anytime the user picks a new option, we're going to figure out what department they picked and then query the database, get the courses for that department, and put them in the course dropdown.
Okay.
So we're creating this cascading effect. You pick something here, something else changes over there. So this code in blue, notice I now have an unsaved change in the C# file. So I've got a new selected index changed event. So first we will get the selected department ID. So I'll just create a variable.
That didn't pop up for me. Take the void.
If it didn't pop up, then you'll need to type it. So we want to get the selected value and store that in a variable called department ID. How do we fix this little error? What's Visual Studio telling us? Right, selected value is a string, but our department ID is an integer, so what do we need to do with that value? Yeah, we'll have to convert that to a 32-bit integer, so then they're both treated as numbers. Now we'll want to connect to the database, same way we've been doing. We'll create a new default connection. I'll create a course variable that will store the list of courses. So we'll query our courses model. But we don't want all the courses. We only want the courses for the department the user picked in the dropdown. And we'll order by the course title, so our list of courses is alphabetical. So this will run an SQL select query. We're filtering only for the department we want, and we're ordering our results. So we'll bind the query result to the course dropdown. So we'll just set the data source property equal to our query result converted to a list, and we'll call data bind. We've done this lots of times by now. So every time that a new department is picked, this code is going to run, our page is going to reload, and our course drop-down values should be changed. So once we've got the code in this function, we can compile the site. And now you should be able to try it out. Go back, refresh your page. Choose a department, and then see whether you get the related courses showing up in your course dropdown. Choose another department, the course dropdown should change.
Where do you get department? Just show that code at the top.
I just added it right after we called get student.
Okay, so I have an else statement in there where, like, if, would I add it in after the else?
Depends what
It's just
your
a
condition
panel,
is.
It's showing a panel or not. It's from the lab.
You want it to show if postback is false and we have a student ID in the URL.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter if the panel is still true.
No, doesn't matter.
Oh.
So if I reload my existing student now, so now if I pick economics, my page reloads, and we get those two courses. I pick English, we get these. Now notice my department dropdown has a default option that says select. When I load my page for the first time, so does my course dropdown. The problem is as soon as I pick a department, that goes away. So we probably want, on our selected index change, we want to put that select option back in this dropdown rather than just defaulting to the first alphabetical choice. We still want select to be the first choice, and we want to force the user to pick a course that doesn't say select. So when we loaded the list of departments, here's how we created that new option. I created a new list item where the text was select and the value was, I gave it a value of 0. You could give it a value of -1 if you wanted to. And then I inserted that new item into the first position for both dropdowns. So this is what happens when the page loads. We just need to do this again when every time our course dropdown is repopulated, we want to put that default option back in. So I'll just add in after we populate our course, so we'll put the select option back at the top of the list. So I'll create a new list item called new item. And we can supply what the default text is and what the default value is. Both are considered strings. So I'm going to put them both in quotes. So our items of our dropdown has an insert method built in. And when we insert, we can choose what position in the list we want to put the item in. So we'll put it at position 0. first item in the list, and we'll just add the new item we've created on the previous line. So now every time our courses repopulate, the first item in the list will still say select. And I've given it a value of 0, and in the HTML I gave you, there's a validator, a range validator for each dropdown. When the user clicks add, it'll make sure that the course ID is not 0. It's got to be greater than 0.
Did you just type that all up by yourself?
I did.
Now?
I did.
Okay. What?
Because we lose that option here. We want to keep the default option that says select in this dropdown. So I've added those 2 lines of code. Those 2 lines of code will do that.
Yeah, I kind of got lost a few code lines up.
So if we recompile, pick a department now, not only should our courses repopulate, but they should both, the course should still have the option that says select at the top. So they both default to the word select. If I pick a department, now I get the courses, but my select option gets put back in each time. So this is kind of the effect we want. So what we will want to do with this is keep this cascading effect, but we want to implement AJAX along with it, rather than reloading all the page and all this data up above, which is completely static. There's no point. We just want to target that this postback only updates this section of the page. There's no need for us to update the rest of the page when that happens. This is probably a good place for us to take a pause. So we will take a 10-minute break here, and then we'll look at implementing AJAX into this when we come back.